Hello, everyone. Welcome to the webinar. I'm Peter Zemsky, Deputy Dean, Dean of Innovation. I'm broadcasting live from Insead's Fontainebleau campus. We have an excellent topic before us. As you know, one of the fascinating things about the pandemic is the way it's accelerating different parts of digital, whether it's e-commerce or online collaboration. And it's really interesting to probe not only the acceleration, but maybe how are things changing under this rapid development, and what does it look like post-pandemic? We're going to go and take a deep dive into the area of food preparation and delivery, a topic close to the heart or the stomach of most Inseaders. I'll be joined by Jaydeep Barman, who's really got a front row seat, and not only just a seat, but is actually helping to shape the evolution as founder and CEO of Rebel Foods. An 06 grad, 15 years behind Jaydeep at Insead. We've got Kriti Agarwal, who will be channeling your questions later in the talk and throwing them at Jaydeep. So anyway, we thought we would at least touch in, give Jaydeep a little bit of data based on the audience. So here's the poll we're going to pull up. Last week, how many meals did you personally have delivered? Please launch the poll. As you know, most ways that you log into Zoom, you'll be able to answer, but sometimes with your interface, you'll just have to watch. Host and panelists cannot vote. I can't actually see the response rate. So Sandra, when you think we've got enough votes, you can please share that. I think we do. So here we go. So a bunch of you are busy making your own food, but there we see a spread, 1 to 60, some 60% of you are ordering out with a spread. Okay, next question. For those of you who are ordering out, take a look at this one. This will be important for what Jaydeep talks about. Next slide, please. How many different restaurants did you order in the last month? So that was a week. We're now asking you to look over the last month. Do you have a favorite? Did you spread your orders out? Let's throw this out there. I don't know. I hope there's not enough action, then maybe Jaydeep won't be interested and won't see you as potential customers. Let's find out. Sandra, when you've got enough responses, let's share that. And there you go. And again, Jaydeep, this is for you. But you see, again, 1, 2 is the most common. Some people ordering from 5 or more. So there you go. Okay, so Rebel Foods, we're going to find out all about it from Jaydeep. Let me just flash a few slides for you so we can really dive in. You can see the footprint coming out of India. One of the things that's super interesting is global expansion is being fueled. We'll talk to Jaydeep about that. Current footprint, 360 kitchens being operated. As we'll learn, each of those kitchens is supporting multiple brands so that effectively he's got some 4,000 local restaurants running with already 2.5 million customers, 7 countries. Next up, for those of you interested in the consumer space and branding, super interesting. And we'll probe him on the brand side. You can see he's both launched and created his own brands, plus licensed and supporting other brands like Wendy's, and then we'll have to find out what this means by hosted brands. So for those interested in marketing and it's linked to operations, this is going to be super interesting. All right, without further ado, please join me in welcoming back to Insead, Jaydeep Barman, Insead 06J. Jaydeep, turn on your camera, please, and let's kill the slides now. Thanks for coming out. I think maybe Jaydeep, the first thing to say to the audience is just start at the beginning. Just clarify a little bit. What's a cloud kitchen? What's a restaurant platform? Tell us a little bit about this emerging sector.
Sure. Thank you, Professor. First of all, for having me. It's kind of nostalgic, coming back to campus, though digitally. But terrific to see you and everyone else. Yeah, so I was really intrigued to see that about 20% of the people ordered from 5 or more restaurants in the last month. I mean, that's even more than I ever thought, or I would do myself. But imagine that you are thinking you are ordering from 5 different restaurants, but imagine that all those restaurants are actually housed in a single kitchen. So fundamentally, a cloud kitchen basically decouples your real estate from the brand. So in a sort of real world or brick and mortar world, every restaurant is also a piece of real estate. But the big disruption that the cloud kitchen model brought about is that you don't have to put up 5 different real estate to run 5 restaurants. It's like a car factory where you have 20 different models coming out of the same factory. Using technology, using supply chain, using processes and things like that, workflow, you can actually have 1 kitchen but 5 restaurants. So that's in a nutshell, what a cloud kitchen is and what an internet restaurant is, and that's something that we've been trying to innovate on, for the last X number of years.
So just to probe a little bit, naive questions, does that mean like there's one fryer where suddenly it's making fries for Wendy's and then 10 minutes later it's frying my Indian food, or is it not that? How integrated is this kitchen?
Well, this is, when we started, obviously we were not restaurateurs, and my mom would be like super angry with me if I tell this to her. But fundamentally, we kind of realized over time that any cuisine in the world is kind of combination of bill of materials, dispensing, and movement. So if you think about, Chinese noodles, it's like bill of materials is your noodles, your spices, and your dispensing is to put in a particular point in time, a particular quantity into that wok, and then movement is tossing. So most cuisines in the world can be thought like this, bill of materials, dispensing, and movement. Now you can build technology around it. Like you can build, for example, to your point, you can build a fryer which is a smart fryer, which understands when you're cooking falafel versus when you're cooking French fries, and it automatically sets itself up and things like that. So imagine a kitchen where you have a series of tech-driven sort of equipments or machinery managed by obviously sometimes skilled, sometimes unskilled chefs, and you can actually come up with different cuisines following those 3 processes I was talking about: bill of materials, dispensing, and movement in a particular combination. So that's how these things get set up. Yeah.
Okay, so then what's the link between, okay, we're talking so far about the physical production of the meal. What about the ordering? How much is the cloud kitchen phenomenon linked to platforms that let you potentially order across multiple menus, or is it totally disassociated and I can still just go to the Wendy's site and order Wendy's? Is there much of a link?
Yeah, I think the way this is set up is, it's just almost like, entertainment, where you have creation, aggregation, and distribution. So similarly in food, for 500 years, food was a monolithic industry where the retailer and the real estate and the brand used to be the same thing. You would walk into a McDonald's, right, or a Starbucks. But with the internetization of food, I mean, which I believe is the last frontier of internet after fashion, travel, books, everything, now it's happening to food. This got disaggregated into 3 pieces, which I call creation, aggregation, and distribution. Now, you can create, X number of brands, you can aggregate within a kitchen, and you can distribute through n number of ways, like your own channels, third-party channels, like a Deliveroo or an Uber Eats, or DoorDash, or Swiggy in India. Also, you can have your own brand apps and brand channels. You can have your own food court. All of this we have. And fundamentally, wherever the order comes from, the kitchen is a multi-brand, multi-ordering aggregation point where you create and then you distribute, to the customers using the last mile. That's how it all sort of comes together.
I think that's very helpful. I think it'll help orient people as we go forward. The way I think about it, what I love you said, is sort of the last frontier of e-com, right? So of e-commerce, this is much more complex even than fashion and such. Okay, so let's talk about Jaydeep and Rebel Foods and your co-founder. How did you get in this space? If I'd met you in 2006 at Insead, would I see future internet food person?
Not at all. I mean, I was busy doing, completely different things. But, to be honest, even before going to INSEAD, we had put a hole in the wall, I would say, eatery, back in India, because those were the times we were traveling the world. Both Kallol, who is my co-founder, and me, we were traveling. We were like, first employees in a startup, and we were traveling the world selling software and things like that. And we were really missing home food. So we had put this, hole in the wall, by the side kind of an eatery back in India. But then we went on to INSEAD, and post INSEAD, I went to McKinsey in the London office. I was there for 4 years. And then, when I was kind of got a little tired of changing the world one PowerPoint slide at a time, I thought that it's best to, take stock of things. Also, wanted to have my daughter grow up back in India. So took a sabbatical, went back to India.
This is around what, 2010, 11?
This is 2010 and 2011 beginning. That was.
And by the way, you had a sort of, it was a traditional restaurant, but multiple sites already?
No, there was two sites.
Two sites, okay.
Traditional QSR, very limited seating area, and like really a small format thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so, okay, so you go back to India, and then, okay, how do we get from 2011 to actually, I guess, internet kitchens, early internet kitchens around 2016 or so?
Yeah, I think, our journey has been like most journeys, I would say, entrepreneurial journeys, as, our journey has been a collection of, light bulb moments, I would say, epiphanies, along the way. So obviously we picked up this eatery and we said, okay, this could be a livelihood, mostly because India was unbranded. It is still largely unbranded on the restaurant space. We thought we could build India's first Chipotle, so that was the
light bulb number one.
Yeah. Well, it was less of a light bulb, but you can say even then back then, given our lack of experience in running a restaurant, etc., it was light bulbish, I would say. And, we started with this one place, and fortunately, a year after starting, we got to about 20 odd locations, and we were like scaling fast, and Sequoia Capital was our first investor. I mean, they came in almost, we were raising a small round, and they said, okay, India, unbranded, restaurant space is humongous. Here are two, ex-McKinsey INSEAD guys, trying to do something about it, let's put some money. And, that was kind of, and we were all, we were on a growth path. But a couple of years down the line, around 2014, we kind of realized, and that is when our first light bulb moment happened, why India was unbranded. We faced the headwinds of building a, real estate heavy QSR chain. Because down 500 meters in Singapore or London or New York, you'll find hundreds of nice eateries on both sides of the road. But in India, you walk down maybe 10 kilometers and you'll find like one or two. So,
and there's a reason for that, you discovered.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the reason anybody wanting to start a restaurant is eyeing the same real estate, which means the prices go up. Rent to sales ratio in India is the highest in the world for restaurants, and which we realized, in a very hard way. And that was the time we were wondering, how to make this work, because we were at about 50, 60 locations, but not making money, real big headwind. That was the time someone in the room said, but 75% of our orders were still delivery. So we did a small survey of our customers and asked them one simple question: have you seen or been to our outlets? Some 73% responded saying no. And that was our first light bulb moment, that, what happened in fashion, books, travels, and things like that is happening in food. people are okay to order in. This is back in 2014 when the concept of cloud kitchen was not there. So we said, okay, then why do we have high street, costly real estate? Why don't we put a kitchen on an industrial estate, first floor, and because it's 75% delivery, let's see what happens. So
and it worked. So we're going to fast forward a little bit so we get the whole story out there. But give us okay, light bulb goes off. You do this, it's working. Talk to us where you were in 2019. So right before the pandemic hits, you were building out. You were already multi-brand. Give us just sort of a snapshot of how it worked.
Between 2014 and 19, post couple of more light bulbs, we had about 300 plus kitchens in, I think we were in 3 countries by the time. And because our kitchens didn't have front facades, they were back alley, first floor, big kitchens, industrial automated kitchens, which meant we could put more brands from the same kitchens. So by this time, we had already built what we call a Rebel operating system for launching and scaling restaurant brands. And this operating system had, culinary innovation, technology, supply chain, and obviously our kitchens. So that's where we are. Pre-pandemic, we're in 300 plus locations. Most of it were in India. Also, we had started Indonesia and Middle East from Dubai. UK was about to start. And
just understand, when you say you got the operating system, it's like you decide, hey, we think we can bring pizza to India. You can work out how you want to tackle pizza, test it, and scale it across hundreds of kitchens across
Absolutely.
India. Boom.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's awesome. We'll take questions in a little bit just on that. So I think that makes it pretty clear. Let me just ask one thing that I saw coming up a little bit in chatter. There's a lot of excitement around this topic. How do you think, again, there's a lot of interest globally around tech for good. So when you think about this concept of a cloud kitchen that you're really at the forefront of, what makes you sort of proud about the contribution of cloud kitchens to the world? And the flip side, are there any concerns you have around, I don't know, impact on mom and pop businesses or such? But why don't you start with the positives?
Right. So, actually, during pandemic, we realized that we were in a position while brick and mortar restaurants were all closed. Because of our scale, we are in 35 cities in India alone. We could actually run a program called Food for Good, and we have already fed about 1 million daily wagers who lost their jobs, their livelihoods, across different parts of India because of pandemic. We were the only guys who could do this because we had the supply chain, we had the cloud kitchens. It was us reaching out to these daily wagers and feeding them rather than opening restaurants and contributing to the spread of the virus and things like that. Only we were in a position. So today, because of the supply chain that we run across different countries, we are in a position to really help out. And this has become, post-pandemic, this has become part of our DNA, our operations. Helping out communities, whichever locations we are, helping out daily wagers and other communities. And we are in a unique position to do that, and because we cut across, tens of different types of cuisines, we can actually create, very nutritious, not fast foody, nutritious meal for people across the board. So I would say that way we made impact in India, which most food businesses would not be able to do it. That I would say has been I would say a big positive contribution of our model.
Nice.
To this.
Any other? Do you have any concerns yourself, or do you face criticisms? Anything around the model that you get pushback on?
Actually, I would say that we are today. We build supply chain. There are things for which India didn't have supply chain. We built it, which means we generated employment. We employ close to now 9,000 people. And, so in terms of employment generation, and India needs it, and most of the countries, even in Indonesia, UAE, most of the countries we are generating a lot of employment. So that way, I would say there are a couple of things that we need to be careful about. So one is because we deliver, so we use energy more than, let's say, mobility energy, like, petrol or diesel. But now we are moving completely electric. So about 60% of our kitchens now run on electric bikes, but we still have to go a long way to make sure that we don't leave behind a lot of carbon footprint. The other thing is packaging, because, for us, we have to provide food in packages rather than, reusable dishes. So, but I'm proud to say that we've been able to move to 100% compostable, biodegradable, plastic-free packaging as of now. It took a while, but these are, I would say, some of the environment, I would say negative footprint we could leave behind, but, we are doing our best to make sure that, we do at least our bit to not leave behind such carbon footprint.
Very nice. I want to do, Kriti, why don't we open? I see a lot of questions coming up for Jaydeep. So maybe we're going to do a little bit more pandemic later, but any initial questions you want to get off the plate, as it were?
Of course, this has been super exciting so far. So we have a question from Marissa. How can you maintain signature dishes or recipes that lead to competitive advantage of a brand, since the kitchen will be shared with different and potentially competitive brands?
Well, I think it's a terrific question, because, there are two models of cloud kitchens. So I would like to believe that we run Cloud Kitchen 2.0. While Cloud Kitchen 1.0 is you take a big real estate, divide it into smaller kitchens and then rent them out to different restaurants. That is, I believe, the kitchen version of WeWork. So we call it WeCook. But fundamentally, beyond the real estate, there is not much synergy here. You don't use the same SKU, same supply chain, same manpower. It's basically you're duplicating resources in these smaller kitchens within a big kitchen. Because we came from building our own brands, we actually looked at it differently. So we organize our kitchen in a way which is almost like a multi-brand or multi-cuisine sort of workflow. So these are not smaller kitchens. It has the same storage, same SKU, same manpower, but organized in different, I would say, workstations, which means, brands, and we started with our own brands. We didn't have this problem of, someone else's brand eating into our brand and things like that. So our first 15 brands are our own, and we build the system, build the operating system. And right in the middle of pandemic, we realized that operating system now can be used to launch and scale third-party brands. So which is when, we onboarded Wendy's and a few others. Wendy's wanted to build a pan-India presence, so we onboarded them. Which doesn't mean that the Wendy's is running the operations in our kitchens. It's our manpower, our technology, our supply chain. It's just that the brand we licensed in. And, just think about this, food delivery is a very sort of neighborhood business. Every neighborhood has, let's say, 100 restaurants. The model that we run is every neighborhood, we bring, 20, 30 restaurants out of those 100 from our kitchens. These are restaurants run by us, either owned by us or licensed by us. It's almost like Disney. When you have Disney Studio, you also have Lucasfilms and 21st Century Fox and, Marvel Studios and things like that. But it's all under the same Rebel Foods umbrella. So the question of this cannibalization, etc., doesn't really apply. We run the operating system, but we host not only our brands, but third-party brands.
So Jaydeep, just to put a little pressure on you, while you answered that one question, 12 other questions showed up. So anyway, Kriti, why don't you grab a couple more interesting questions for Jaydeep already?
Yeah, the other interesting one I see here is from Madalena. Do you see Uber Eats, Delivery Hero, Deliveroo, etc., as major emerging threats for your business?
Yeah, so who is the competition? Great
question. So, if you look at the value chain and if you look at all sorts of industries, retailers will always have private labels. Like Amazon will have an Amazon Basic, or a Netflix will have a Netflix Original. But if you think about, there are a couple of industries where this has not happened. One such industry is online travel. Expedia doesn't have an airline or a hotel chain. Priceline doesn't have an airline or a hotel chain. That's because running an airline or a hotel chain is completely different from running an aggregation business. While Amazon can go to the same manufacturer Samsung goes to and pick up the product and distribute. Netflix can go to the same producer and get a movie made and distribute. Similarly, like online travel or travel in general, similarly in food, the business that we run has completely different DNA, completely different operating sort of capabilities that you need. This is, every order is made to order for the customer and distributed. Manufacturing is not in one place and then distributed. It's the manufacturing itself is distributed. So which means you need a completely different DNA. Like in India, aggregators, friends, they wanted to do private labels, but later on, they collaborated with us because it needed a completely different sort of expertise and DNA. And now we are collaborating with Foodpanda in about 4 countries and so on and so forth. So we bring to the table a completely different expertise, which is probably, not so obvious for aggregators. So we don't see them as competitors as such, not yet at least.
Kriti, that's great. Let me just probe. I'm going to push us forward just a little bit more, push a little bit to get the whole pandemic thing out there. And then we'll come back to you in the audience. These questions are just awesome. So, okay, so Jaydeep, the pandemic, you already laid out one big thing, which is lots of people want to rush to do more delivery, more of this kind of stuff. And you're sitting there on amazing capabilities and you're then, bringing like Wendy's to India. You can say more about that, but then also it's putting the whole sector in play. So the window to do international expansion is looking a little different. Maybe you could say a little bit more about what the pandemic has meant for your global footprint first.
Yeah. So I think, with pandemic, with brick and mortar restaurants sort of taking a backseat, etc., suddenly you have this opportunity to launch virtual restaurants from existing kitchens. That's the biggest idea coming out of pandemic. If there is a restaurant, you can launch a virtual brand from that restaurant using the kitchen infrastructure. And we have the operating system. And, I would like to believe that we are a few years ahead of anyone else in the world today. So the way we took it up is one way we brought other brands onto our kitchens, but we started putting our brands into someone else's kitchens. So we started Malaysia, Bangladesh, Singapore, and UK in the last 3 months. UK, we were trying to do it post-pandemic, but our plans were a little jeopardized because of the logistical issues, etc. But over the last 3 months, we have opened all these countries without putting even a single kitchen. So we are working with other operators with existing kitchen infrastructure or restaurants, and we are putting our brands as a virtual brand, as a what we call as a SaaS proposition. And we are calling this business like wildfire, and because it could really propagate across the world like a wildfire. So I would give you an example. Today, we have exported our brands on this construct in 4 countries, in 35 locations in a span of like 7 weeks. So by this year end, we should be about 500 such locations. So if you imagine to put 500 brick and mortar restaurants, it would take 5 years, maybe a decade. But we are now sitting on a model where we can propagate this, within weeks or months. So that has been the big, I would say, big benefit or the big opportunity that we saw coming out of pandemic. We could suddenly become a global company in a very capital efficient way, completely disrupting, the franchising model of brands.
How is it just leading that and the organization? How have you both yourself stepped up to the opportunity? How have you helped your people, especially when you're all working virtually? Have you brought new talent in? Just how have you managed to really exploit an amazing opportunity?
I think the answer was brewing for a few years, because I wouldn't say we've done something drastic in the organization level during pandemic, but as a company, we come from a part of India where people are known to be lazy, and
I'm not going there, but okay, yes.
Both Kallol and I, because we were lazy, we were like, super thoughtful about delegating things. So like our Exicom, which is our senior management, has been there for 8 years now. So these people have joined back in 2011. These are the people who are real CEOs of our business. The guy who runs Indonesia is our Southeast Asia CEO. The guy who runs Dubai is our Middle East CEO. They brought these opportunities together and they ran these pieces, because they had already they already had the vision to pounce on the opportunity, had the sort of organization in place to go fast on it. So that's why I said, we were always a company of, owners or CEOs, a lot of CEOs in our company. In fact, our kitchen managers are called CDOs, Chief Delight Officers, because they're CEOs whose most important job is to delight customers. So I think this org setup was there for us to pounce on this opportunity and move fast.
Nice. Let me probe on that one. What about talent? What have you found? And again, could be interesting to current students and recent alums. What have you found about effective talent to make this model work, who can give that initiative? For example, to what extent have you tapped into people with restaurant franchise experience versus bringing in new people and teaching them about your approach?
Right. It has been a mix. I would say, we've always been a values first, experience second company. So we hire, reward people based on values as well as results. And then the values are, customer obsession, ownership, challenging the status quo, bringing innovation to play, caring for people. We built our company along these 5 things. And what happened over time is, on one hand, we had, young talent coming out of engineering or a business school join our ranks. Like, for example, the guy who runs our Middle East business joined us right out of engineering. He's 28 years old, now running Middle East for us. And, we no background in restaurants or nothing. So we've got a lot of general management type, entrepreneurial, talent who are running our business. Obviously, over time, we have, sort of coupled this talent with, industry, culinary expertise and things like that. But I would say largely, our senior management, our, senior leaders are generalists, entrepreneurial, and mostly have been hired for attitude rather than experience. Cool. And yeah, so that's how we built our company.
Clear. Kriti, all right, so this is great. I think we've laid out a lot of the key elements of a fascinating story. Let's start digging deep. Kriti, where would the audience like to double click on these topics?
Awesome. Yeah, definitely. One of the questions that came up was from Clive. Is there transparency to your customers that the dish is not exactly made by their favorite customer or by their favorite restaurant?
Well, all dishes are made by the restaurants. So, we just happen to own those restaurants. Like if you think about Yum Brands, which runs KFC, Taco Bell, and Pizza Hut, 3 different restaurants, right? But the company is same, Yum Brands. So, we are similar. We run these brands, but each brand is known for that particular cuisine. And in terms of transparency, of course, over the, time of pandemic, we became more transparent. I mean, now when you order from one of our virtual restaurants, you'd be able to see, for example, who cooked your food, what their body temperature was, whether medically certified, what temperature the food was cooked, what temperature it is coming, whether it was UV sanitized before getting out, what was the quality check before the food got out. All this is transparently visible on a QR code to the customer. So when you get the delivery, you scan a QR code, you get to see who cooked your food, everything. The ingredients that have been used, their origins, their nutritional value. No other restaurant could be as transparent as us. I mean, there were few things that we were always very clear about from day one, that we would never use artificial colors, flavors, processed food, and that we've been true to always. And some of all this information is available to the customer in a very transparent way. So great. Yes. And today we are thinking about actually live streaming our kitchens. So we are working on that technology. Yeah.
Fascinating. Kriti, next question.
What are some of the major opportunities and threats for the business over the next 12 months?
Anything keeping you up at night?
Well, obviously we run a very distributed operation. So we are now in 40 cities. But the next 5 years, we would like to be in 100 plus cities, probably 1,000 plus kitchens, probably, on an average 30 plus restaurants per kitchen. So you can imagine 30,000 internet restaurants. To put things in perspective, McDonald's has 25,000 restaurants across the world. So, so we are on a path to sort of, disrupt F&B coming out of India, but working on a global stage. So expansion, geographical footprint, bringing new brands. These are the levers that we are working on, bringing new technology to make it seamless. These are the things we are working on.
You sometimes pinch yourself when you think about the opportunity you have in front of you right now.
It's unbelievable, really, and and I don't see myself or my team as to be getting ahead of ourselves and thinking that we've done something tremendous. It's not that. It's just the nature of the opportunity. Like food probably is going to be there for a couple of 100 years. Till it is downloaded from internet. I think that day is still very far. Right. And food trends change all the time. Today you are having pizza, tomorrow you'll have vegan, day after tomorrow you'll have keto diet, and things will change. And it's seasonal. It's we have a model through which we can work on all of these things. So we are not stuck with one real estate, one brand. We've created an infinite canvas, and that makes me extremely fortunate to be, running this model. So yeah, so I'm very, very excited about it.
Pretty.
And do you imagine potentially having a physical pop-up store or a pop-up restaurant alongside the digital offering, of course?
Great
Absolutely,
question.
yeah.
Never answer that.
Great question. And, we believe that somewhat like how Amazon has now gotten into Amazon Books and Amazon Go, similarly, we have an opportunity to redefine even the physical restaurant. So we've started working on smart food courts, smart physical food courts, which is, imagine a food court which has 30 restaurants, but the restaurants change all the time. Restaurant, a food court where you don't have to stand in a queue. You can order, while traveling into the food court. There are pop-ups, a chef comes on Wednesdays and, does a Lebanese food festival in that food court. So completely reimagining even a physical version of a restaurant or a food court, something we are working on. Our first 2 such food courts are coming up as we speak. And we have also rendered into, smart food trucks. So now we have about 20 food trucks. Again, depending on where the food truck is, the combination of brands change. So if it goes to a residential society, we are selling a lot of biryanis and noodles and desserts. If it's a corporate park, then it's a lot of salads and pizzas and things like that. So obviously, we are really thinking about how to even reimagine a physical sort of rendering of a food business.
Makes you want to be a successful entrepreneur, but it's anyway. Kriti, next question.
So what are some key observations or learnings you've had or that you will have that when you're scaling into Western countries? So far you've been in India, Indonesia, etc.
Right, great question again. And I always love this Insead participation. I was missing it for sort of 15 years. Like many things in our company, we look at this as a 2x2. So the one axis, if you have market size, on the other axis, if you have extent of fragmentation. So India, Indonesia, Middle East are big markets, but hugely fragmented, unorganized. So these are markets you can build brands. Like, for example, in India, you can build brands in, biryanis, Chinese food, desserts, coffee, all completely unorganized. You can build brands. While when we go to UK or Singapore, obviously market sizes, UK obviously large, Singapore not so large, but heavily sort of organized. We would do surgical strikes in these markets. We'll find areas or categories where it's still unorganized, like Indian, like Chinese, like Lebanese, like vegan, emerging trends, health, still unorganized, and we would be working on opportunities, especially when our brands are concerned. But we can also work on established players and give them a platform to work with us, like Wendy's for burger, as we've done in India. We are also talking to some of the biggest pizza chains and the Mexican chains in the world to bring some of these guys to UK or Singapore or other markets. So this would be the stereotypical of large market side, but still organized, but bringing, a specialist player into those markets. So a combination of surgical strikes and bringing, specialized players would be our strategy in these markets.
And on the Wendy's note, how did that partnership come into play? Can you maybe talk more about it and other of the big brand partnerships that you had just mentioned as well?
So if you think about, someone trying to enter India, it's a large market, right? 1 billion people. But it took McDonald's to put 300 locations. It took them about, I would say, 9 years or 10 years. So Wendy's entered India about 5 years back, but they have only 5 locations in 5 years. We now gave them a platform with which they can get to 300 locations within a year, in like 12 months. So that's the kind of platform, pan-India platform, that we can bring to these brands who want to get into India and build a pan-India presence.
Jaydeep, just curious, did you approach them, or did they see the possibility and approach you? How's that going?
So we were thinking about categories where, it's organized, like in burgers, there was McDonald's and Burger King. So we were thinking about, should we build our own brand or bring someone else who already has a presence? And we approached them. And then we did a 3-month pilot in 3 of our kitchens. And that pilot was supremely successful, no physical facade. And that is and pandemic helped to some extent, because the brick and mortar businesses were hurt. And, a lot of delivery started happening, and we decided, joined together, that this is a humongous opportunity to get Wendy's to 300 locations within months rather than, a decade. So that's how it came together. We approached them, they got excited, did a pilot, and now, we're just scaling super fast.
Okay, I'm going to push on this one. People are interested. Can you say anything about how you structure these deals commercially? That is it a revenue share? Do you get involved in building the brand? Can they walk away from you in 3 years and just do it with a new competing cloud kitchen? Anything you can share about how you structure the deals? I know it's sensitive.
There are 2 types of deals. One is licensing deals, which is kind of Wendy's, where we run the business in India. We pay a royalty to Wendy's. But
you're like a massive franchisee.
We are a franchise. You can talk about the new age internet restaurant franchise. And we, we pay royalty to them. And then there is the other model, which you pointed out, which is hosted brands, which is not exactly licensed, where they use our technology, our culinary innovation, operate out of our kitchens, but they still, run the brands. Usually, the hosted brands lead to a licensing. So the hosted brands kind of happen in like 4, 5, 6, 10 locations. Everything is working out fine. Then we take up license and then, scale it up across geography. And apart from Wendy's, we've done it with 15 other, brands, smaller and bigger brands in India.
So you also have, again, you have the marketing muscle to also introduce and create brands, right?
Absolutely. And it's, the way we launch and scale brands, if you think about, if you are launching a restaurant, you would put $1 million, put up a restaurant, and then realize it's not working out. But for us, we would launch it in a couple of kitchens. We will see whether it's working or not. We'll see whether customers are loving it or not, iterate it till we get to a point when we see customer love. And then we scale. So we reach product market fit, and then we put marketing money behind it. So we don't have the issue of, spending a lot of money and then realizing this is not working, because it's almost like software. When we launch, iterate, get to product market fit, and then scale.
I know. Anyway, great example of a lot of modern thinking. Kriti, we have time for a couple more questions. You'll need to prioritize among the 88 Jaydeep unanswered questions. Kriti.
So this is more about your journey. What do you think was the greatest challenge when moving from a when moving a startup from a small scale to a larger, well-established player?
See, I think, the way I would say is, and I read it in one of, Bezos's interviews, and I really relate to it. My job has transformed from from how to what to who. So when we started, Rebel, it was all about how. How can we put this new kitchen? How can I, hire this guy? How can I put the lights on? And how can I make sure everything is all right? Over time, I realized that my job became defining what needs to be achieved, and then rely on my people to achieve those things. The hows are to be defined by them. So then I realized, I started putting the what or the objectives in place. Like, this year, this is our objective, and then let people, design the hows and execute. And then now I'm seeing, I'm mostly thinking about who, which is, who should be my senior management, who should be running, Southeast Asia, who should be starting UK. And then those guys define the what and the how. So I believe this has been the biggest transformation in my life while running Rebel for the last 10 years. So I really moved from how to what to who. Obviously, there are times when I have to get to how and like really get into the detail. But I think proportionally, this has been the big transformation in my life.
Operations to strategy to OB. There you go.
Yeah, probably.
Okay, keep firing away, Kriti, till we run out of time. It's awesome.
Awesome. So this is more about reusability. So, given the scale, do you think you should and could create reusable packaging instead of single use?
Yes, we are really working hard on it. First, we obviously started with compostable, biodegradable, but now we are getting to a position where we're trying to put reverse logistics to get the containers out of people's home and then get them back to it. I would say we're still scratching the surface, but going forward, it's going to be a big focus area.
I'm going to intervene just on the flip side. So one thing is planet, the other is people. As you alluded to this, but you also have an influence on wellness, what people actually eat. Obviously, they're going to order what they want, but how do you think about your role and whether it's sugar consumption or healthy eating?
See, naturally, we are seeing a progression towards healthy eating. So it makes business sense to do healthy eating. So there is no conflict between doing good and doing well as a business. Because people are eating healthier, so it makes sense for us to bring more healthy stuff. But I think where we can be more proactive, and that's something that we've been doing over time, is being transparent, like telling people what they're eating. Because sometimes people want to indulge. People may be sugar-free for like 5 days a week, but on a Saturday night, they may have a sugar rush and wants to have that donut. As long as you are transparent, as long as you are telling people what you're eating, what the calorie count is, I think it's fine. Obviously, also, we now have a few nutritionists working on us because, also the understanding of food is changing. 5 years back, what we thought to be good food, that understanding itself is changing. So we are working a lot on that and bringing new information to the customer so that, and we are in a unique position to do that because we run the full stack. We know where the ingredients are coming from, what the origin is. It's our duty to sort of bring that transparency to the people, and we are doing it. Yeah,
very clear. Thank you. Back to you, Kriti. Sorry to have jumped in.
Awesome. And so, what role, for the Insead alumni, what role did Insead play in making the founders of the world's largest and fastest growth internet restaurant platform?
Well, I think, Insead taught me two things. Insead taught me a lot of things, but I would say two major things. One is ability to be comfortable with diverse points of views. I still remember my first project. There was a Turkish person. There was a New Yorker. There's a guy from Tokyo. There was a French guy, and I was there. So, it was a culture shock to me as my first project at Insead. But throughout my year at Insead, I have seen the tremendous benefit of diverse points of views. And I think that's something I become comfortable being the dumbest person in the room and being, really sort of listening well and, understanding other people's points of view. This was a big learning for me, and which I think has helped me a lot, building the company, also as we are going to different countries, etc. The second thing is structured thinking. I would say when I landed in Insead, I was like, all over the place in my headspace. Insead and then subsequently with McKinsey, I think I became, a structured problem solver, where I would take up a problem, I would dissect it into logical sort of buckets, and then apply first principle thinking to those, rather than thinking, okay, what are the other what happened somewhere else, and drawing. I mean, I would do that, but I think Insead brought a lot of structure to my thinking, and which helped me a lot, in subsequently at McKinsey, and as well as when I'm running Rebel.
Kriti, I'm going to ask you to do maybe one more question. I have a last couple that I want to hit them with, but one more from you, please.
Awesome. One last question is, there's been press coverage on how you've used robotics, A/B testing to scale the business. Can you maybe talk a bit about how this has helped so far, and what other technology Rebel Foods is using or considering using?
Yeah, so it's a topic of an hour at least, but I would try to say a couple of words. Our kitchens have over time become very, very automated. Not automated in the sense that we use robotic hands or something like that. It's we've employed smart equipments, which means we've, for example, we built a smart tosser, which we call a woki, which can do 1,000 different types of noodles, pastas, stir fries, etc., where the recipes could be loaded over the internet. Like if we have to launch a new dish in Jakarta, we load it from our culinary center in Mumbai over the internet, and then the machine gets adjusted with this new recipe. So we don't have to go around and teach people, SOPs and processes with like a 4-day training program and things like that. We can launch recipes super quick, because we, last year we applied for 6 patents. And again, we applied this robotics and hardware, which is run by the way, by an ex-Apple guy. This function, we call this function transformer, because they transform normal processes into magic. So a lot of this. So we have a automated star fryer, we have an automated fryer, we have automated flatbread maker, we have automated rice maker, and a few others. And we are just scratching the surface on this. And so a lot of this in our kitchens now. Yeah.
Right. Actually, that's funny, because that was exactly where I wanted to take the conversation at the end. This is as you said, the Insead audience is awesome. So I want to go a little deeper on the tech side. What are tell us a little more about other places you're excited about tech, thinking over 3 to 5 years, both in the kitchen, but also, again, what you're doing in terms of supply chain. I imagine there could be things there also to the extent that there are things also in the marketing side, the platform side. What are the kind of technology pieces that excite you?
The piece, obviously there's been more automation, there's a continuous journey, better supply chain, better management, all of that. But the piece that interests me most, excites me most, is food is the most personal of all consumer goods. It's more personal than entertainment. I as a person would like my, steak rare done, and a little bit, salt, and every person is different. And we are working on this, imagine a virtual personal butler, a virtual Jeeves, who understands your food preferences, whether your salt intake, whether you're allergic, whether, you love, your dishes done in a particular way. And when you order, that information is fed back into our kitchen. And then the dish that is prepared is personal to you. It's almost like the waiter that remembered you from the last time and said, sir, you're usual, and you don't have to say anything.
Or it's a little bit edgy, but again, both my parents cooked and cooked well. So the idea of like, if I could upload my mother and my dad into your system and get their dishes to come out, that would be, that's amazing. Anyway,
that's the thing that excites me most.
Radical personalization and what you could do on the platform. Okay, well, Kriti, because you asked my question, you get one last question for Jaydeep, and then I'll wrap up with him. You're on mute still.
Sorry, I was on mute. Definitely. I guess maybe one of the last questions that Jaydeep can answer is, how do you think about cost in your business? Of course, there's a lot of fixed costs, variable costs. How do you go about thinking about that? What drives it, et cetera?
Cool. So Jaydeep, we only have a few minutes, so short answer on this one, and then I'll give you a final question.
Yeah, like any business, the cost has unit economics, which is variable costs, with COGS, packaging, delivery costs, things like that. And then you have a bunch of fixed costs, which is manpower, rental, and so on and so forth. So, our unit is a kitchen, also a customer, LTV versus CAC. That's, it's usual. That's how we measure our business.
Very good. Nice. Okay, Jaydeep, I guess I'll just ask you, we'll go back to something we were asking you earlier, but a little bit of advice. Think about other people who are setting out to try and be an entrepreneur in a new sector, maybe disrupt it, really feel like there's an opportunity like you saw in e-com going to food service. Well, based on your experience, any advice for someone who's thinking about or in the midst of going into a new sector, trying to do something really fundamentally new?
See, I think, I would say maybe two things. So one is, build a team that is first principle thinking. So at least in the beginning, don't fill your team with industry experts, because what will happen is with industry experts is real disruption won't happen, because these people will come with a lot of baggage and they'll say, okay, in our industry, this is the way it happens. And, that's not a good starting point if you want to disrupt something. So I would say build a team that is outside of the industry that you are probably trying to disrupt, and think from first principle. So that's one. The second is always think customer backward. So think, what will make a difference in customer's life, and then create your, supply chain, operations, execution, everything working backwards from there. A lot of us, and I was also guilty of making these mistakes. A lot of us wanted to build our business's capability forward, that I know how to do this, and hence I do this, rather than customer backward, which is, let's think what the customer wants, and then, these are the two things I would say.
Anyway, so much gold in this. So thank you so much for coming back to Insead, sharing, just the excitement of what you're living, what you're learning, what you're seeing. On behalf of the whole community, thank you so much. We wish you all the best as you take this business forward and have just a big impact globally.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Take care. Thank you, Kriti. Great job, everyone. Cheers.